You are now listening to Shotgun Sports, powered by Winchester. Recorded in the U.S. and streaming all over the world, we talk to shotgun shooters from all disciplines, world-class instructors, gun clubs, target setters, vendors, and industry-leading companies that fuel the sport. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast, leave us a review, and connect with us on social media. You can also catch our episodes on shotgunsportsusa.com.
If you or your club are looking to purchase Promatic traps, make sure you get in touch with Rick Hemingway. He is the largest Promatic dealer in the country and can handle everything for you. Rick offers new and pre-owned units and exceptional service. He also has a huge rental fleet, so no job is too big or small. Rick is well known for setting championship-style targets and designing unbelievable courses, so make sure you ask him about his turnkey services for skeet, trap, and 5-stand. Contact Rick today at backwoodsquailclub.com or call 843-546-1466. On the show with us today, we have probably one of the most recognized names in the sport. He has produced champion after champion after champion, and Mr. Dan Carlisle is on with us. And he is at Fennell Shooting School with Will Fennell at the clinic that they do probably, 2 or 3 times a year, Will?
Yeah, we do it a couple times a year, usually about 5 or 6 days. COVID's got it cut down a little bit, just to 6 days. But Dan comes over. When I first met Dan, he was living here in South Carolina, so it's his biannual trip to kind of come back to the homeland, and we shoot a lot. God, those guys today shot, what'd they shoot? 8 cases? I mean, we threw some freaking targets. It was awesome. Some older, guys, senior super vets, and they were eating it up, man. Those guys were pounding some birds.
Your clinic's what? All day long, right?
Oh yeah, it's an all day kind of immersion clinic with Dan and I. And
so I was supposed to be at this clinic. I think this clinic was the one that was going to be before COVID hit.
Yep,
correct.
And I was actually signed up to go to this clinic with both of them, and then COVID came around. I had to reschedule it, and they're having it now, and I got to miss out on it. So.
We'll get you back over here, and we got Wonder Kid Cameron here. He's in charge of all the electronics because he's a Special Forces 18 Echo communication specialist. So
Green Beret.
Green Beret. He's in charge of all these mics and plugs and filling traps and
born hard
feeding the dogs and all that kind of stuff. He's doing good.
He brings you the water. Just call him the water boy.
Water boy. I like that. Water boy.
All right.
Don't worry.
Call him the water boy.
We're gonna let Cameron have the wild card question sometime before we're done. So
and what's that? What is that? One question he's going to get to ask.
One question.
I get one question.
It's going to be about himself, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Dan traumatizes me my whole life, and I get one question.
So Dan, welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you on finally. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Justin. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a long wait. The most requested guy is on the podcast with us right now.
Wow.
There's no telling how many emails and texts and messages I've got. When are you going to have Dan Carlisle on? I said, we'll get him on. So here he is. And we're going to try to
I appreciate
talk to
that.
him for a while. So I'm glad you're here.
That's making my head real big right now.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, so tell everybody a little bit about yourself, Dan. Everybody knows you're kind of like the godfather of sporting clays or shooting or whatever you want to call it. And, just kind of get into your story. Tell everybody how you started out, maybe how you grew up shooting.
All right. I can do that. This year is my 50th year as a competitive shooter in my life. It's a long time. And I'm a little burnt out a little bit about competing these days, but 50 years is a long time. I don't love it as much as I used to.
Yes,
even though
you
Will's
do.
on my all the time about competing and shooting, and he still loves it. I love teaching. I've been doing it so long now. It's a job. It's not a job. Everybody always dreams about having a job you never have to go to work at, and I absolutely have one. I have fun every day. I teach people how to shoot clays. I've created a certain method, the triangle method, that probably 95% of the people on the planet use, and that are great shots. Created a lot of over 40 national champions under my belt. So, it's been a heck of a run. I'm 64 years old. I'm going to be a super senior vet here in December. Y'all watch out. I might make another run at it.
Stay on your meds. Just stay on your meds.
Okay, I'll stay on my meds. Don't worry. But no, I shot my first registered clay. It was in 1969. I was a trap shooter. But before that, my father was a big bird hunter. And he grew up in West Texas. And his best friend that he grew up with farmed 12 sections of property in cotton. And back in those days, they had very wide hedgerows, about 40, 50-yard wide hedgerows, and that's where all the quail lived. So every year we always went to shoot, but being 9, 10, 11, I was the kid in the hedgerow pushing the birds and out to them, so I never really got to shoot. So I bugged my father.
You were cheap. You were cheaper than a bird dog.
Yeah, I was cheaper than a bird dog. And we had bird dogs, but, I was better, because I listened when they talked to me. The rest of the bird dogs just ran off most of the time. You know how dogs are sometimes.
Yeah.
And anyway, story is bugging my father really bad. I'm probably 12 at this point. And I really wanted a shotgun bad because I wanted to learn to shoot these quail. And I wanted to hunt with my dad and my brother. And I bugging him, and I'm just driving him nuts. And finally one day he called me boy. He never called me by my name that I can ever remember. He never called me Dan or Danny. He called me boy. And he says, boy, go out in the shop, my workshop, and grab the gunny sack, which is a burlap bag, in the corner. And I've seen that thing there for a year. And I went and grabbed the sack. I come back, and he pours it out on the ground. It's a Red Ryder BB gun. And he hands me the BB gun, and then on the rest of the ground, there's these coffee cans, and they're this Folger kind of brown looking pukey coffee color pukey. I call it pukey brown. And it's the coffee can. And it had a white stripe about an inch wide painted around the can. And I'm looking at the BB gun, and all the sights are ground off of it. And I went, wow, there's no sights on it, Dad. He goes, son, you don't need sights. He says, boy, all I want you to do is I'm going to spin this can up, and I want you to look at this white ring. When you shoot the BB gun, you're not going to look at the end of the barrel. You're just going to look at the white ring. And I said, all right. So he spun the first one up, and I hit it. There was about 20 cans in that bag. And I probably hit about half or a little bit more than half of them. And after that was over, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and I said, Dad, am I going to get my shotgun now? He said, hell no. You got to hit all these cans, boy, to get your shotgun. That's the way it is. So my dad was like that. Anything I ever wanted, I had to really want it. And I had to work for it to get it. And if I didn't want it bad enough, he didn't get it for me. That's just how he was. So you can imagine the next 3 months of my life after school, coming home and spinning that can up in the air with the BB gun in one hand and the can in the other, spinning it up and dinging that can. So about 2 or 3 months goes by, and one day I'm waiting out for him to get home from work. I got the sack in my hand, and he drives up his pickup truck, gets out, and he steps out of the track and looks at me in the yard. We had some property so we could shoot clays in our yard and all. So I'm standing there with that burlap sack, and he looks at me and says, you think you're ready for that shotgun, boy? And I said, yes, sir. So that day, we spun those cans up, and I hit every one of them. And the last two, he really got after it and really spun those up pretty big, and I still dinged them. So I was pretty happy, boys, at that moment. And the next day when he drove up, he gets out of the truck. Here comes this big white long box coming out of the truck with him under his arm. So I was probably the happiest kid on the planet at that point. And when he opened up the box, there was a Stevens single barrel hammer cocker, it's like $29.95 kind of deal, right? 20 gauge. And that was my first shotgun. So, at that point, I'd say about a year later, we shot in the backyard. I was always a kid working the trap, kind of like Cameron did when I used to teach his dad how to shoot. He was my trapper. He was pretty good trapper too. He's over there smiling right now. Fair. So anyway, I time goes on, and I'm finally get to the backyard, so I get to shoot some clays with the shotgun, and I can never forget my dad. I'm out there banging away. Anything behind the trap going away, I hit real good. Anytime I get out to the side of the trap, and it was a little more angle on it, I missed most of those when I was a little kid. And he'd be over there hollering at me, boy, look at the bird. That's all he ever said to me. Look at the front edge of the bird. Forever. He never told me where to mount the gun and how to point the gun, not anything. But my dad was a heck of a shot. He seldom ever missed, really, when he shot quail. And so as time goes on, another year clicks by. He gets me a job down at the local gun club. It's about probably 5 miles from my house. And it had a 50-yard and 100-yard rifle range and 2 trap fields. And so what I did, I don't know, back in the day, people would probably remember this if they're my age, is that they called them turkey shoots, where you put this card in a little slot in a little metal square about 35 yards out there, and it had a little X in the middle of the card. So you shot it with a shotgun, and the BB closest to the center of that X won a turkey or a ham or a slab of bacon. And every Sunday they did that. So they started at 9 o'clock and they went to 4:30. And I was the kid who put the cards in and picked them up. Well, at the end of the day, they gave me $10. My dad would show up with 4 boxes of shells, and I would give him back the $10 for 4 rounds of trap. And that's how I learned to shoot. That's how my dad operated. So that's how I learned. At 5:30 or 6 o'clock, we had to shut down because there was a nightclub on the property that they owned. It was called the Ponderosa.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah,
I didn't even ever heard about the Ponderosa.
Yeah, it was so big that I don't tell this story very often, but it's true. It was gigantic. It's like, it wasn't as big as Mickey Gillies, but, I'm 12 years old. It sure the heck looked like it, right? It was gigantic. So eventually it burned down and everything fell apart. But so when that happened, my father ended up buying one of those trap fields, and we moved it to the next door neighbor's house. And my neighbor's son, and me, we shot trap every day after school. And at that point, we got pretty good. And my dad bought me a couple of guns as time went on. My next gun was a Remington 1100 28-inch barrel field gun modified choke. And so I met a guy out there named Doug Meadow. He had this jacket on. There wasn't a spot on the jacket. It didn't have some kind of patch on it. 100 straight, 25 straight, the champ here, the champ there. He was like my hero. And I haven't talked to him or heard from him in a long time. I'm sure he's passed. He was probably 50 then. And he was like the pro. And he helped me out a little bit about technique and so forth. And I knew how to look at the bird already. So then he gets on my dad about taking me to a trap shoot. I grew up in Houston. So I go to the trap shoot at Greater Houston Gun Club, my first shoot. I shoot 98, 94 in singles. I win Class B. I won a pair of Ray-Ban shooting glasses, which was the hottest thing on the planet at the time. I mean, it was like, they were cool. I mean, all the best shooters were wearing them, right?
You pick up chicks with that.
And I got a check. That was the next shoot. I got nothing for that shoot. So, well, in those days, we didn't really know what we were doing. We just paid our $10 and shot for 100 birds, right? It was pretty cheap in those days. So, 2 weeks later, we went to another shoot, and I shoot 97 in the handicap. So I win. So, and they go pay out and they give you the check, and I got $9.36 for my 97. Well, there was a 96 underneath me that made like $150, $200. And, in 1969, that was like $200 was like $800 probably now. So we're like, what's going on? They go, well, you have to play all these options. So you have to spend more money for the 25, the 50, and the 100, and the overall option. So, okay, we got it figured out now. So my third shoot, we went to the big shoot. It was in Sherman, Texas. And there was about a 25, 30 mile an hour crosswind that day. And I shoot 92. And I tied with a guy that you probably know pretty well. His name is Dudley Coleman. You know his son, Mike Coleman. So I've known the Coleman family since I was 14 years old at this time. And I've known Mike, congratulations, veteran champ last year. Wore me out. Good shooting, brother. But I've known that family forever. Well, Dudley and I, they were giving a car away that day. It was a Volkswagen, and the car was worth like $1,900, right? But they had a Calcutta the night before, and nobody knew me. And it's my third shoot, so my dad bought me for $10 in the Calcutta. You had to pay $10 to get in. You had to at least buy yourself for $10 if nobody bid on you. And there was about 200 people in this shoot. And I walked out of that shoot after this with about $5,000 in my pocket. And that was a lot of money. So my parents started a checking account for my shooting account. So I shot on that until I was 18 years old and graduated high school. And then I made an All-American team when I was 17. All-American trap team. And I met her, Randy Boss, that owns Caribou Gun Club. He was on that team too. Him and I grew up shooting against each other. And the Army writes me this letter to possibly qualify to shoot on the United States Army Marksmanship Unit and for Olympic trap and skeet. So when I got out of high school, I told my parents that I'm not going to any more school. I want to go in the Army. So that's what I did. I spent 7 years in the Army at that point, shooting international trap and skeet. In my last 4 years, I cross-trained into skeet. I won the national championships in trap 7 times there. I won the skeet once. I won back-to-back championships. First person to ever win both championships back-to-back weeks. I won the world championships in skeet in 1982, first American since 1954. That was a pretty proud win for me. Plus, I was 3 of us tied for it with 199. I had to break 75 to win that in the shoot-off. The following week, that next 3 days, I went down and tied it for trap. I made both teams that year. And 6 of us were in a shoot-off, but I missed one in the shoot-off and came in 4th. But that would have been really nice to be able to medal in the World Championships back-to-back, trap and skeet in the same week, which was never been done in history and never has so far. I'm pretty sure I'm the only guy that's ever won anything on that level that cross-trained into both. Usually people just shot one or the other. The following year, 1983, I went back to that exact same club, and it was the Pan American Championships as in Venezuela. And then old days, there was 3 shoots a year that you could set a world record. And it was the European Championships, which we were not allowed to go to in our continent. And there was our continent, the North American Championships. And so that was either the Pan Am Shoot of Americas, and then we all met at the World Championships every year to compete against each other, or the Olympics. That's how we competed against the Europeans. And so I broke the first 200 straight in international trap at that point. That was probably the highlight of my career at that point. It's never been done. It was a record for about a 60-year record. There's been 6 200s broken. I was the 6th one, but I was the only one that had ever achieved that to actually set a world record. So that was a world record I was pretty proud of, and it was retired later on. So when they changed the rules at that point, we were shooting an ounce and an eighth. And then when they went to an ounce, all the new records start over. And then when they went to 7/8 ounce, all the new records again. And now they have a thing called World Cups in the international events. And every month they have 1 or 2 World Cups, and every one's a world record. So there's a lot of guys like Glenn Eller, a kid I trained, Olympic gold medalist in the Army now. He's got 5 world records himself. And it's because he's broken his own world record several times. And, of course, Olympic gold medal. He's 3-time world champion. I don't know how many times national champion.
He can cold, smooth shoot sporting clays, too, especially FITAS. God almighty.
He won the FITAS World Championships as a junior back in the day before he ever even shot an international trap. But anyway, back to the story. I spent 7 years in the military, and then when I get out, I had a call from this guy named Robert Moore. He was a doctor in Houston. He was a dentist. And then another boy named Bob Davis, which was a oil guy. I think he dealt in mineral rights and stuff in Houston. And they says, "Hey, Dan, we're starting this new sport called sporting clays. Have you ever heard of it before?" And I went, "No, I don't think I've ever heard of it. What is it?" He says, "Well, it simulates hunting, and it's a blast. You think you're interested in helping us out?" And I went, "Yeah, I got like 3 more months in the Army. I was shooting the Olympics in 1984 in LA, which I tied for the gold, lost it in a shoot-off. It's a moment I'll never forget. I came in 3rd, but I did get a medal. I was pretty happy with that. And so after the Olympics, I had 3 months left in the Army. So when I was talking to Mr. Moore, Dr. Moore, he says, "Man, we really need somebody to be our chief shooting instructor." And I said, "Well, I do a lot of work in the Army, and we did clinics all over the country, and I volunteered for every possible thing I could to stand up in front of as many people as I possibly could do to talk, just to be able to stand up in front of people and give a class." In the Army, they, once you're in NCOIC, it's kind of a priority. They go through a list, but I volunteered my services every month for doing that. And so I kind of was excited about it. Sporting clays, it sounds great. Now I said, who do I need to contact to tell me what the heck's going on with sporting clays? He goes, well, there's a guy over in England named John Bidwell. He's like 4-time world champion. And when we shot with John, and he was eager to help out America get started. And you think you could go over there and see him. I said, well, let me have his phone number. So I give John a call, and John said, yeah, come on over. We're glad you Yanks want to shoot some clays. We need some competition over here. And I spent 2 weeks with John, and we went out shooting every day. He taught me about the clay business, setting targets, all the shooting. And of course, John shot Move Mountain Fire style of shooting, and he was teaching me that just to get me started. I'm a more control type shooter. So actually, the triangle method is really part of that. It stems from Move Mountain Fire. It's just in Move Mountain Fire, the problem I have with it, or I see with it, is that you have to train a lot, 3 or 4 days a week, to really stay on your game. It's a lot of timing involved. Where a control shooter, we have a better sense of balance and feel with the bird running with it. So it's just it's a lot the same. It's really all the characteristics are the same, but it's a few different parts and pieces that are changed to be able to make it that anybody can do it and anybody can shoot. So kind of years go by.
So guys, some of the younger guys in the crowd probably haven't heard of John Bidwell, but Bidwell was the man back in the day. He's also the guy who trademarked the Move, Mount, Shoot style method, and he's taught everybody, and that's where all that comes from. And I'll never forget, Corey and I, another one of your proteges, got squatted with Bidwell in England for a shoot, and we talked about that week or 2 weeks you spent there. And of course, Corey and I razzing him, giving him hell all the time because he really wasn't shooting Move, Mount, Shoot. Targets were too hard. So he was getting connected and pulling away. But Bidwell is like a legend in this game.
This was in 1985 is when we formed the USSCA, United States Sporting Clays Association. And Robert Moore and Bob Davis did that. And I was the chief shooting instructor. So after the second year, then I brought in an assistant instructor with me, a guy named Dan Reeves. He was a trick shooter, but very well versed, good clay shooter. He's passed since then, but great guy. And we wrote a manual about sporting clays for the USSCA. And then we went around the country, teaching people how to be instructors like the NSSA would right now with, their chief shooting instructor. So that's how we got the sport to grow a little bit, is getting people out there to be able to teach other people. And then clubs started springing up all over the country, and it got pretty big. I mean, our nationals aren't like today, but they were 600. So, and then after that,
and you won that nationals twice, right?
No, I won the USSCA national championships twice. Then when they faded away, the NSCA came in, and then the USSCA went out, and then another organization called the Sporting Clays Association. It was SCA, is what it was called. Sporting Clays America, and I won that national championship a couple times. I think that to this date, I have 16 national main event championships under my belt, 3 world championships under my belt, and Olympic medal. I've made at least 15 All-American teams. I've lost count. I don't even remember. It's been so many years of doing this, 15 or 20. But my problem is I just don't shoot that many targets. I work a lot. I enjoy what I do. I'm really glad I was on this train to be able to see this sport grow to the point of where it's at right now, when I can go to the national championships and there's 2,000 people there. That's absolutely incredible.
And, one of the things we forgot to kind of put in our little outline, in addition to that, you helped found the PSCA, which a lot of the younger guys listening to this podcast are kind of probably familiar with that. PSCA was a dream of yours for years and years
Absolutely.
and years. And, man, it was awesome.
Well, I met a guy.
I forgot all about that. Yeah,
I met a guy named Mike Osowski and from Houston, and we were talking one day. I was giving the guy some lessons. He's done well in business, great guy, and we got to chatting about it. And I just mentioned, man, it'd be great if our sport had a pro tour, and he goes, well, let's do that. I'll fund it. And I went, Mike, come on now. It's going to cost a lot of money. And he goes, well,
I got a lot of money.
That's all right. I got a lot of money. I've got no problems with that. And let's do it. So about 3 or 4 months later, writing all the rules and regulations, the format, how everything works. I had some help. I had Haley Dunn, Mark Weeks helped me out a lot. And we started it. It was incredible.
That wasn't just putting on a tournament. That was founding a professional tour.
That's true.
I mean, you had to come up with that was a lot of work. I remember months and months and months.
It took like 4 months to be able to put it all together.
Oh, yeah, and a TV show while we're at it.
Yeah,
That was pretty cool.
It was incredible.
The first year of PSCA was, without a doubt, the best.
Well, I appreciate that.
It was.
Well, you hear that a lot, and I also hear a lot that the targets were so much harder that first year.
They were.
Because they were supposed to be.
I hired a target setter, Jeff Foster, and which
Chadwick came?
And Chadwick came too. He set some of the clays for me. And I think those are the two guys I use mostly. Neil Chadwick he taught America how to set targets. If it wasn't for Neil Chadwick, really, we wouldn't have a clue the first 5 years on how to set a clay target in this country.
Note to Justin, that's another guy you need to get for the podcast. Yeah, that would be hilarious.
Neil Chadwick is a legend when it comes to setting targets, and he's still setting targets all over the country. And most of the time, he picks and chooses a little bit. He's getting old like me, and he kind of does it for fun. He
just kind of does the nationals,
more or less, yeah, and especially at the nationals. So, as far as the history of sporting clays, I really hope this continues in our sport and it grows to hundreds of thousands of people. I feel the biggest part of our game here recently is just the difficulty of targets. The NSCA is a class of people from master class to E class. They're not the PSCA. So the boys, I cut loose on the targets. I told, the target setters, guys, I'm going to come around and look at the targets. You got gloves off, do whatever you want. Just keep it inside 60 is what I told them. So they pretty much did that, but they had a lot of speed, a lot of distance, a lot of difficulty. And we shot a head-to-head format, and 60 shooters, top 30 made the cut, you made money. And the money was pretty dadgum decent early. And then we had the big show at the end for our grand finale, basically, the World Cup. And it was the top 30 money makers shot for some really real money at the end in our last tournament. And after that, some things kind of fell apart financially. And they kind of wanted to change the rules to a night game. And I just really felt like, that's not what I wanted to do. That's just not me. I don't really go watch the world championships in football, and they're doing the punt, catch, and kick championships, or they're not playing putt golf when they're at the Masters, or
it went from playing sporting clays to I understand the intentions, but it went away from playing sporting clays.
Yeah, it just got away to a game that's really not sporting clays. It's just a game. You go to the golf tournament, you want to see golf. You go to watch the NBA national championships, you want to see basketball. You want to see shooting three-pointers and free throws from the sidelines. So that's the way I thought about it. Hurt my feelings a little bit, but, it was about the money, and it's just part of trying to make it work. It was more showbiz and drama, and we're under the lights and, that kind of thing. So I think that's why it really didn't last. I think if they would have kept the same format, the game would still be going on right now. They did get a 501, which really helped, but it was just a little bit too late. It was really hard to get people and sponsors to donate the money to be able to make it function properly. So it had to come out of somebody's pocket. So, even though you had deep pockets, you're just not going to, just keep adding money to a losing battle. That's just the way it is.
But it was a hell of an endeavor. It made a mark on the sport. I think it made the top shooters better, because iron sharpens iron, and you take the top 50 guys of the country and you make us all go head to head 4 or 5 times a year. Everybody got better.
It is amazing how some of the guys that are kind of down the list a little bit really showed up.
Absolutely.
That really there were, not the guys you would think would win every time. Some of them didn't make the cut. And that kind of would wake you up about the newcomers coming into the game. So then after that, here we are. I do clinics around the country. I still love getting out of bed. I got out. Let me see. I drove 17 and a half hours yesterday to get here. Living on about 6 hours sleep, and we worked our butts off all day today. Had a blast. Had some guys that were a little older today that just shot lights out. I think they shot about 500 shells each.
Oh, no, they shot more than that.
So we had a blast. We had an absolute fun time today.
Yep. And we got 5 more days to go.
5 more to go. Heck yeah.
Wow, you got enough people for that many days?
Oh, yeah.
How about that?
Yep. Oh, yeah. This clinic fills up pretty much every day, Dan. I can get down here.
Well, we got some openings. You want to come out?
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to come up there for sure.
Bring for you, Justin. Bring some Advil. Okay, so we're gonna work your butt off.
And 3 flats of shells.
And 3 flats of shells.
So
my reputation.
So what else? What else you doing with your clinic? Kind of get into that, or how that works.
Well,
so people will know.
Yeah, I teach a system we call the triangle method. I developed about 25 years ago. Actually, it all came together for me about then. I've done a few videos, had a book on it, and the book, the Taking More Clays or Taking More Birds, it's just, it was the nucleus of it, but it wasn't quite fine tuned at that point. And about 20 years ago, it started to do our first video in 2005 or 6 or 7, something like that. And then that was pretty good run back 13 years ago.
I have that video.
And then I had it down then, and this next video was really solid. And now I'm doing some other stuff. I'm going to do some online stuff I'm working on. I've made a bedroom into a studio, and I'm doing a lot of filming right now when I get some time off, and just adding it to the stockpile, and just going to try to do some sort of online, video that you can sign up by the month and pull up anything you want. We expect to have, about, I'd say 50 hours of video content and shooting content in it, from trap, skeet, sporting, hunting, all of it. So it's kind of another fun task that I'm involved with right now that I'm working on.
One of the things about Dan, guys, is, and I'll tell a little vignette story real quick that ties some of this in. When you've competed at a world level in so many disciplines, trap, international skeet, sporting clays, FETAS, when you got a guy like that brings all that to bear, it's such a total package. Like, for instance, the very first time Dan and I tied, it was like 1996, I think, at a local shoot. And they said, okay, you're going to have a shoot off. It's going to be double strap. I'm like, really? You're going to put me against the Olympic medalist in trap? I got to shoot double strap. So it was also the first year that they let us shoot mounted gun. Back in the old days, like when Dan was shooting, you had to shoot, the gun had to be below your armpit. And then in 96, they changed the rule where we could start pre-mounted if you wanted. So I didn't know. I'd only been shooting about a year, and everything I'd done had been low gun. So I win the toss. I go first. I start off low gun, and I miss every first barrel and hit the second. Dan steps up and just grins at me, mounts the shotgun like an Olympic trap shooter, and annihilates all 8 clays. So I told him, after I congratulated him, I told him that he needed to teach me how to do that. And I'll never forget, he told me, he said, we'll work on that tomorrow, because we need to learn how to teach sporting clay shooters how to shoot trap shots. And when you take a guy who's an Olympic medalist in trap who shoots sporting clays, and he figures out how to combine those two things together, we pretty much got about the most solid mounted gun trap shot repertoire in the freaking game as your students.
That's true.
We get people from other instructors and other methods that come see us.
I never shared that for a long time.
to learn how to shoot mounted gun. And I'm telling you, it's freaking devastating. So,
so
when you got a guy that can bring all that stuff to bear, international skeet, that's where our gun mount comes from.
Sure.
I mean, it's the most efficient gun mount on the freaking planet. Watch Vinnie Hancock's videos, guys. That's how you learn how to mount a gun right there. Because it's exactly the same way Dan and I teach people in Cameron, teach people how to mount guns.
So let me ask you, why did they change that rule to where you can go from a low mount to a mounted gun? Why did they change that rule?
It's pretty easy. Too many people cheat.
Referees
looking over there at the trap when you calls pull, and they're already getting the gun in their shoulder. So,
yeah.
the English went through the same thing they started, they're 40 years ahead of us, and they went through the exact same process. They had the same rules that we had, and then they changed theirs 20 years before. I mean, we even started, and they're looking at us, why are you having a low gun when, this is what's going to happen? And sure enough, it did. It happened. Too many people would cheat.
So you take a big hulking guy who, lives in Georgia, and he says, pull, and he's mounting the gun as he says, pull, and the little 16-year-old girl says, sir, you mounted your gun before the target was visible, and he hollers at her. And it just doesn't work. So unlike FETAS, where you've got dedicated trained referees in sporting clays, Justin, there's half the time there's either no referee, or it's a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout, or somebody who's not really into it. It was just, It was really hard to enforce. So they went to what we call now the free gun mount rule, where you can start pre-mounted if you want to. So Dan said, well, we're going to figure out how to take advantage of that. And holy moly, can you take advantage of that when you got somebody with his intense level of trap background is Carlisle, figuring out how to apply that sporting clays. Because it isn't the same. Trap, you don't really know where the target's going. This game, we know exactly where it's going. So you can set up and take huge advantage of that. And that's just an example of somebody that's got a huge, just ginormous background in all these different disciplines that Dan does, being able to bring all that force to bear on our game of sporting clays. And it's pretty awesome to watch. It really is.
Well, sporting clays, the method we teach, I have 6 points to it. The first one, it's a break zone you have to find, and you have a hold point, just as if you're about ready to call pull. And then you have speed of the bird and the speed of the gun meeting. We call that moving on the flash. It's the first thing and one of the most important things you have to learn to do. And then when the gun hits and comes into play with the bird, is with a dismounted gun or a pre-mounted gun. That's called placement. So the gun has to be entered somewhere around the bird, on it, in front of it, out in front of it, on the line.
Always on the line.
So that's the precision part of the game. And then there's a thing called connected. And I came up with this a long time ago, and I learned it. I remember the day I was in Pauling Mountain, New York, and if you ever get a chance to get to this club and private club, if you know somebody that's a member there and you get a chance to go there, don't pass it up. It's the most gorgeous place you've ever seen in your life. And I did a lot of clinic work back in the day there. And I was off that afternoon, and I was up on the bluff just shooting myself, practicing. And that's when I discovered the word connected. I really figured out why I was so good at that moment, that I was shooting pretty good and I could win because of this one very thing. It is the absolute most important thing of the gun. And then once you learn the connection, and then the gun, the eye has to actually see a part of the bird in detail. You can't look at the whole bird. When you're shooting, and whoever's listening to this, tell yourself the truth, okay? Next week when you're shooting and you miss, and your buddy behind you goes, oh, you're over it, Bob, you're over it, Bill, you're over it, John. Look down at the ground and ask yourself, what did you really see on the clay when you fired? It's going to be fuzzy, round, or have detail on it, one of the three. So it's just the truth, really. Most people really don't understand how to truly focus on the clay. They don't get it. I know a lot of good shooters talk about this, but the problem is, it's a kill or be killed game. Either I kill you or you kill me, kind of like basketball. When they're shooting free throws, don't they look different than when they're playing the game, Justin?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. But why? Because there's a lot of mental management. And if I don't make it, I've been doing it since I'm 8. I can shoot 60% in the field against the other player, the opponent. I'm fine. But on the free throw line, you have to make that. So there's a lot of tension and pressure. And our subconscious part of our brain and that survival part of our brain takes over. And if you don't make it, it kills you. And if you make it, you kill it. We deal with that every single shot, and it's stored in a part of our brain. It's like walking across the street and being in a conversation and still looking both ways. It's your survival. And, have you ever pulled it to the stop sign and said, okay, I'm not going to look this time. I'm just going to step on it. Have you ever done it before?
Yeah.
No, you have? You're a wild man, or you were drunk. Something was really wrong with it.
Probably.
Funny.
No.
But, that's just how it is. So what happens when you first learn, the first 2 or 3 years of your shooting career, there's this word called lead. And when you first start shooting, you hear everybody's, your grandpa, your uncle, your dad, I see 2 feet on this one, 3 foot of lead, 4 foot of lead. And you know what? In our sport, you can do that because if you want to, you can pan your eyes out and open your vision up and see the bird, the space or lead and the barrel all at once. And that's where most people come from because, Justin, that's just logic. If you think about it, I got all the parts here. Why can't I make this work? And you shoot between 60 and 80 your entire life. If you go to the Nationals and look all the scores up from last year, there was 2,100 people there. And I'm pretty sure 2,000 of them shot between 60 and 80. Okay. And then there was maybe 70 of them shot between 80 and 100 or 90. And then 30 of them shot between 90 and 100 on average on their preliminary, the 5 stand and the main event. On those 3 events and that 500 clays, only 30 of them broke a 90 average. You take a look at the scores and well, why? It can't be that hard. And if you take a little kid that's 10 years old and you teach them how to see the clay when they're 14, they're master class and All-American already because all they understand is how to look at the clay. So their survival is to do that, not to look at the gap of space at the last split second. That part of your brain doesn't know right from wrong. It just knows what you've taught it to survive, to hit the clay. And if it's only 60 to 80 that you hit, it doesn't matter to it. Okay. It doesn't matter. That's as good as you can do. And so that doesn't just go away. There's ways to fix it, but it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of training to break that part. And guys like us that beat on you until you understand what it truly looks like to look at the bird. All these great shooters, I've got, from Corey to Anthony to Annabelle, Hayon Hanks. I mean, I've got over 40 champions under my belt, national champions, Olympic champions, all the medals, world champions. There's 10 of those under my belt, and just from teaching. And it's all from a great mechanic. So the gun has a marriage with the eye. And when the eye is ready to fire and sees a bird clearly, the gun is already ready. So everything is in sync and in balance together. When you watch great shooters shoot, they make it look easy. They move the gun 6 to 10 inches maximum, and they look like they're in slow motion. Okay. The big 3 that I call the big 3 is this in order of a shot. The first thing you have to do is when you call pull is move your hands on the flash of the clay. If the bird is halfway to the barrel before you react, you're technically already beat. You're going to have to fix that. And where do you think your misses come from? It's your fixes. They're not from the perfect move. All right. The second thing is making sure that the gun connects to the bird. That's when the gun speed and the bird speed are exactly the same. I know that the people listening out here right now will be able to look up at their ceiling fan in a few minutes and after you put it on medium, which you've probably already done. And when you look at the fan, your eyes are going to work in 3 stages. You're going to see the whole fan. You're going to start to pick out a blade. It'll be blurry, and then the eye will lock. And when it does, the fan will go to a crawl for about 4 turns. After you get that under control, try to hold your finger on it. You will be able to hold your finger on the fan making the turn. That's what we call connected. So if the gun and the bird are all exactly the same speed together, they're one in the brain together. So when the eye locks to the bird in the visual moment and the gun is matched speeds, they all slow down together. The best shooters, when they pull the trigger, the term we use is the bird is hanging on a string. You will not be able to tell the difference between a bird that's going 50 miles an hour and one that's doing 20 miles an hour. They all feel like they're doing 1 mile per hour when you deliver the shot. That's the very best players. So there's a combination of moving on the flash that allows the gun to be ready and have the maximum amount of connection before the bird enters the visual moment. Then the eye has to zoom into the edge of the bird so the subconscious can tell you when to fire. It's not a conscious effort to pull the trigger. In a nutshell, it sounds real easy. It sounds real easy, but it's not easy. It's easy when you're 12 years old
because
you don't know anything. When you first start, your problem is you come from a world of lead. And the more you look at the barrel, the more it's wrong. The more you look at the lead, the more it's wrong. When you mount in front of a bird and you're running with it and you're looking at the gap between the bird and barrel, you're already stuck to the barrel. You're not going to come off of it 50% of the time. It's what the best players don't do. And you've seen players that they didn't start as kids. They started at 25, 30. They didn't start when they were really young. And we take Kevin McMichael. He's awesome. But he came from the school of hard knocks. I mean, he wasn't that great in the beginning. Bill McGuire wasn't either. And they didn't start at 12 years old. They were grown men with kids just about. And now look what they are. They're champions to the max. They were some of the best shooters we have simply because they understand truly how to look at the clay. That's what they did from the beginning. So it's just a matter of time to learn the mechanics to make the gun actually have this marriage with the eye. And that's truly in the big scheme of things, that's all that's happening. So once that you understand how to truly focus, it's all downhill from there. You're at your own destiny to how good you can be, how much time off you have, or how much money you might have in your back pocket. I'm sitting next to a boy over here, Cameron Hicks, which I taught his father, which matter of fact, was on a world team, and I'm going to tell you a story about him real quick. We're in France shooting at the VTAS World Championships. It was Andy Duffy.
Claythorne.
Was it Claythorne?
Claythorne.
It was Andy Duffy, your dad, Greg Hicks, myself,
Wendell.
And Wendell Cherry. Oh. That was the team. And Greg was up on the last two parkours and had to break 42 or better to tie. 43 or better would have won. So he goes out and we're all talking in a huddle and he's out there shooting. We're all scared to death. Oh man, it's the two hardest layouts of the whole course. And the three of us, we broke 21s and 22s on it. And we're like, oh my God, I hope we're praying he can do it. Then when he comes off the line, we go, how'd you do, bud? 44. It was like incredible. So we all got to stand on top of the podium that night. And that's just one of those things. And Greg didn't start as a young man. He had his own facility in Virginia. Now his boy, Greg's passed now, and his son shoots, and we're working with him a lot. He's a little cocky. He's a Green Beret, but you know how those guys are. He's tough too. Speaks a couple languages, smart as a whip, and good looking girls.
I don't know about the smart part. I don't know about the smart part. Let's don't get into it.
He's the one right now, like this in the Georgia shoot, the pair of 94s. I mean, he understands truly as a young age because he was my trapper when I was at his dad's house, and he hated my guts.
Hated you.
He hated me.
Used to beg my mom not to have to trap for you guys.
Because I was on his
throw some freaking targets at that place. Yeah. Holy moly.
So I've seen it all in sporting clays. I've seen the best come and go. I've seen everybody. I know who's going to win. I can look at them in 5 minutes and know if they've got talent. It's just what I do. I don't know anything else. I tell people I'm never having a real job. This is all I've ever done. They just laugh. So, I
think you coined the term shotgun bomb.
No, there's another guy that's got that. But I actually worked.
You were in the Army. You were in the Army for a while.
Yeah, I was. I spent 7 years in the Army. I shot about 500 shells a day to learn how to shoot. And that's what I did. So,
and one of the things that just your legacy, that I love, because I'm a little bit part of it, is the people that you've mentored that have then helped continue to grow the sport. I mean, the stable's big, and that's sort of kind of my favorite parts of it because it's got a little bit of a sport network for all of us too.
And most of them that are really good are courteous and their manners are well, and they're not, you know what I mean?
So
they're not asses. So
I mean, you taught Anthony, Corey Cruz, Diane Sorrentino, Brian Hughes, Ed Origi, Steve Liberta.
You,
me,
Will Fennell,
you, Will Fennell.
You just go down the list. It goes on and on and on, and that has helped grow the sport.
It has. I hope it has. I've dedicated my life to this entire sport. I'm not done yet. I'm only 64. I got another 10 good ones in me. I
never forget my dad asking you, "Do you think Will could ever do anything with all this?"
He did. That? And
Walking
I said, yes, he could.
Yes,
yep.
good.
Well, that's the first time I've ever heard that story about the cans, and now you must have told that story to my dad.
I probably did. Did you do
That's
that?
The same exact thing he did to me.
That's cool.
I was mad.
That's awesome. Did you hit any of them?
It took me a long time. Yeah, and then he felt sorry for me, so he just tied it from a string. So I just had to hit it 100 times in a row sitting still. I wasn't that good. I couldn't hit him flying. Yeah.
Well, you're all grown up now.
Yeah.
Well, baby steps, Cameron. Baby steps. Just keep loading traps.
Yeah.
We'll get around
So
that.
I get to call you boy from now on, right? I'll be your second daddy now.
Yeah.
All right.
You know, I've heard people taking the little Red Ryder BB guns and throwing ping pong balls out in the yard and letting their kids hit those, just pointing the gun at them.
Oh, there's no way I could have done that. No way I could have done that.
That's how you do it. If you start your kid like that, they'll already have their survival will be to look at the object and never the barrel. They'll be great. But people have a hard time with that. There's a lot of you coaches. I hope you're hearing this and you're listening to this from my heart. When you tell people to give it 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, you're making a huge mistake. Yep. That's not what we do.
Crippling more people than polio.
Look at the front edge. Your subconscious knows how long it takes the shot to get to the bird in milliseconds. It's why when you lead something out there 5 feet and pull the trigger and you know that you don't, and you just go, and somebody says, how much lead you give that? And you go, I'm not sure. It felt like here or there. It's way out there. It just felt big to me. That's real. I'm pretty sure in any sport you've ever played in your life, you've never seen the tool. I've never seen the bat or the glove or the hockey stick or the pool cue or the dart or the ping pong paddle or the tennis racket or my foot kicking the ball. I don't see my arm when I'm throwing the football. I mean, you just name us. I'm not looking at the hood of my truck running down the freeway. You name any sport where you see the tool, but no, we got a shotgun. So now it's this aiming stick and it's destroyed everybody that's ever shot a shotgun. When somebody says, boy, give that 3 feet, man, give that 2 feet, you're going the wrong direction. So start teaching these kids how to look at the bird. You'll create champions like you can't imagine.
At a little part of the bird. Everybody remember, looking at the bird is good for about a 75. Focusing on the bird is what wins tournaments.
That's my problem.
It's everybody's problem, buddy.
Next. Yeah, I'll tell everybody who's thinking about this right now. Lesson with Dan Carlisle, it involves shooting a lot. I can't get as many shells through somebody as Dan can. It's crazy, but he's right. I mean, when you learn a little nugget, when you reinforce it with 50 shells, you really learn it.
Sure.
How many instructors go, that's it, buddy, you got it. Let's go to the next station. You hadn't really learned anything. You kind of hit one. You got to stand there and do it over and over and imprint and feel it and learn what it feels like to do it right versus feeling the wrong move. And,
Cameron and I were talking earlier about training, and one little tidbit before we go.
Is this the wild card question?
No.
Yeah, we're saving that.
He was going to ask me something about how to train.
Go ahead.
That was your question.
Wild card.
And the wild card.
Oh, my wild card question was a lot different, but
it's probably something to do with women or sex.
Let's let Cameron ask it. Let's see.
Cameron,
the question.
I was just asking him, the most effective way, in your opinion, to train, right? So like when I first started shooting, it was, let me see how many shells I can make come out of the end of my shotgun, and that's going to make me better, right? What's your tell me what you were telling me earlier about how you train.
As I got a little bit older, when I go to the gun club to train for the last 25, 30 years now, is once I got through the Army with all the shooting and all that, and I was pretty seasoned as a shooter in the trap and skeet sport as games. And when I got into clays, how I would train, I'd take a flat of shells and I would go to the first stand and I'd treat it like a tournament. I want 4 good pair in a row. I want to shoot 4 good pair that I'm happy with myself. If I have a bad move, I have to start over. And if I can get through the whole course with that flat of shells, if I have to stand there for 30 pair, I would do it. No matter how frustrated I got. So when I'm training, I like to just go out and shoot. I want 4 good pair. I want to be able to walk up and have 4 good pair that I am happy with. And it doesn't have to always be absolutely perfect, but I want it to be perfect. And then if it takes 20 pair to get through that 4, I move to the next station. And if I get through the whole course, 12, 15 stands, and I've got more shells left, I'll go back to the stands that I had a hard time with to step in. And it's always like a tournament, the first 4. After that, once you break your first 4, you can stand there and just work on this bird or that bird, or maybe pre-mount, shoot it 5 yards sooner, learn how to shoot a bird a little sooner. That old saying, hit the first one, then worry about the other one. We've heard since day one.
That's how you lose.
That's just wrong. That's just an amateur way of thinking. It's not how a pro thinks. You got to hit all the second birds to hit an 8 out of 8. I tell you. So if you're going to take a chance on one, you have to take a chance on the first one. I know where to hold the gun. I know where to look. I know the move I'm going to make. My chances are 98%. I'm going to hit it, and then I can hit all the second ones where in a reasonable spot where it's hittable. You can't hit something on edge, knifing to the ground at 35 yards. You with me? He's throwing the gun over to it just because you hit the first one. That's not how we play the game. That's not how you win. So, people that are hearing this, if you have to be able to shoot the bird earlier, just pre-mount. Don't be hard-headed. You can shoot the bird 5 yards earlier just by pre-mounting alone because the move's more instant to the bird. Mounting the gun takes time. It takes time off the flight of the bird, so you're automatically going to shoot the bird a tad bit later in the back of the window, the visual moment, instead of the front of the visual moment. Now, if you really practice this, and there's off pairs that are tough that they throw a trap bird going away with a big crosser over the top. Shoot the trap bird and the crosser's 20 yards to your right. So now you got all this ground to make up. So those are the kind of birds that setters are throwing these days to make you miss. And, you're not mad at them because you just missed a 25, 30-yard fluffy hanging there all face. But when they throw a 50-yard crosser in the wood line, yeah, you're pissed off because they don't know what they're doing, and that's ridiculous. But when they can make you miss because they're shooters too, and they outsmarting you and throwing birds, we call them all pairs, where they put a big separation with your gun. So those are kind of things you need to be working on to put 4, 5, 6, 8 birds on your score and not be a dadgum bit better than you were yesterday. Just smarter and play the game. That's what I call it. And, we have a lot of that in our clinics, and we do a lot about understanding how to approach the pairs properly. So you make the proper decision.
How to play the game instead of being played by the course setter.
Yeah, exactly. And that course setter nowadays, they're really good at playing you. And I see it all the time, and I see him smicker. A good one is Joe Skull. He can play you big time. He knows how to shoot. He's a good shot. And, people probably don't even know he shoots that much, but he's a good shooter.
Hell of a shot.
And he can really throw some good off pairs that look so easy, but he'll snake one from you. He'll get one from you. He'll get 2 from you, that kind of stuff. And he'll just snicker. You'll never see him throw a 60-yard bird on edge ripping at 90 miles an hour in the wood line. I mean, it's not going to happen. So, and then the last thing I want to say about the difficulty of targets. We have a lot of classes. If I'm a C-class shooter and I'm happy with 75, I think if I shot 75 as a C-class shooter, at the US Open, I would drive out there, or the Nationals. I can't wait to come back. I'm in the top 10, or I have 4 more birds. I could have won a trophy, something like that. I'd be pretty happy to come back. But when the best shooters can only shoot 90, what do you think a C-class shooter shooting? So he shoots 65 out of 200. Man, was that fun. I'm driving out the gate going, I'm never coming back here. I'm just going back to fishing. Hell with it. That's just not what our sport needs to be. It's okay if Corey Cruz breaks 98. It's all right. They're supposed to. They're the pros. They're supposed to shoot the big numbers. Or Cameron Hicks in the future goes out and breaks the hundreds. It's fine. That's what it's all about. Don't punish the lower classes, because then the sport will stop growing.
Absolutely.
It will die out. It'll get less and less, and that's not what we want. We built the sport from nothing to 2,000, from 600 people to 2,000 are national championships. That's incredible. And then we throw 4 or 5 big shoots this last couple of years that the best shooters averaged 90 that won the tournament. What did the D class guys shoot? I was here last year at Wheels, and we had a full house. We had 8 full days last year, And we're with, I was probably 10 people out of those 8 days, no exaggeration, that went to all the regionals that were not going to the nationals because they said we're just too tired of getting beat up. And
they were some experienced shooters. I mean, they were not bad shots, and they were just like, man,
when you hear that from people, it's not what the sport's supposed to be like. I mean, it's okay for these guys to shoot good. They're supposed to. That's what everybody's striving to be, is one of them, and I can see a give and take and a take and take and, then a couple of easy stands and then you give them one, take one again, kind of deal. That's the old terms we use when you have a hard bird, easy bird in a station, or you have two kind of medium hard birds and you have a real hard one and a real easy one, so that's where you take the birds from them. So the better shooters will break, 94, 93, 95, but the C-class guy will still break 70, 72, 75, having a good time. And that's what the sport's about. It's about camaraderie and meeting your friends that you just met at the last shoot and hanging out and maybe having a cocktail. Just meeting new people that you enjoy being with, and it's just going to different clubs
and then
all over
striving
the
to
country.
have your personal best.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you're doing the best you can, but when you get beat up about it, it's something about that people have a hard time swallowing, and everybody's like, oh, that's not right. Well, only people that say that are the top 20 guys. All right. Everybody else agrees with me. Yeah. So, step up to the plate and do what's right and grow the sport. And that's the only way it's going to get done.
I say this every time I talk to somebody like Wendell. I was really listening to what Wendell had to say. And the same thing with this. I mean, I could go back and listen to what you said and pick up something out of every 10 seconds of it.
But, Wendell, he's a very dedicated dude, man. I'll tell you a story about Wendell, and we're still friends. He still calls me. We talk, and when Wendell can't hit a clay, he'll call me and go, Dan, I'm having trouble with this bird. What the hell am I doing? I can't hit it. And so last time, it was a few years back, and it was an incomer, one of those low ones that come at you and just descend slowly. It's a maintained shot where you just hold the bottom edge of it, a couple feet off the ground, a lot of speed, falling out there about 35, 40. So you just hold the bottom, and he was pulling away from it. I said, Wendell, try to maintain the bird. Start at 20, then work your way back. As you get back to 40, it starts to get a little more gap. Don't pull away from it. Okay, I'll do it. And I said, call me tomorrow. So the next day he calls me. I said, well, how'd it go? How many did it take? He says, 1,200. He shot 1,200 of them. I went, 1,200 incomers of the same bird? He goes, yep, that's how many I shot. The next year or so, we're at the Seminole Cup. This is Wendell. This is talking about a guy, why he wins so much. Okay, at the Seminole Cup, I see him. He's got a circle in the middle of his hand, on his left hand, a circle the size of a silver dollar with no, it's just meat. There's no skin on it, just raw. It's like so raw. It's just, well, you look at it and go, man, might be a scar. It's so bad. I said, what the hell happened? You burnt yourself. He goes, no, I was shooting and, my hand was burning off the forehand on the metal, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop because I was hitting the bird. I was learning so much about this bird I've had a hard time with, and I just let it burn me. He said, that's Wendell. How do you beat a guy with that much dedication and that much drive to train like that? That's right. Incredible. It blows my mind. It reminds me of when I was 18 years old.
I've
That's
seen
the
that
shit I
burn
did.
multiple times on his hands. Man.
In December and January, he shoots 10,000 birds a month. That's his warm up before the Seminole, or before the what they Florida call it, the Florida chain shoots right there. They got 3 or 4 in a row, and he'll shoot 10,000 birds a month. That's just his warm up practice to get ready for the season to start. And that's him. He was the very number one best guitar picker. I hope he told you that in Nashville. And I know guys. I know a guy that was in the recording business. He just sold his company a while back. I gave him a lot of lessons, and he said, I knew Wendell. He never lost a single audition he went to. They had 500 guitar players lined up, bud. He said there wasn't one of them. There's 100 of them in line to play for this part of the band or the music or whatever you're playing. He said, and Wendell played by ear. Played by ear. Just play it for me. What it's supposed to sound like. Okay, I got it. And do it. That's incredible. I mean, so the boy got a lot of talent. I have a lot of respect for Wendell. He's worked really hard to get where he's at.
So Dan, man, I remember the early days when I first met you. I had a Browning over and under because that was like the only other over and under you could get with 32-inch barrels. And you shot a Brett automatic because basically back then we shot Brett automatics. We shot Browning over and unders. If you could get one to stay together, we break them a lot. Weren't a super expensive gun. They're a good gun, but the amount of shells we shot, we'd break them. Or you shot a
especially
heavy
L325.
That was what I had, man. It was a stud.
One, that was the best one.
Or you shot a 32-inch Krieghoff Sporter, and you needed to like that heavy barrel feel for that gun. So those are the three things you shot. And I know you've shot all this stuff over your career. So kind of where have you landed? What are you shooting now? I know you shot a lot of different shells. You kind of got some opinions about 8s and versus 7.5s. And
that's right.
Tell us where you're at with all that, man.
Now I'm working with Alamo Sporting Arms with Mike and Pam Young, and they've picked me up as shooting a parkour 32-inch Krieghoff. Really K80, just loving it. I always liked light guns because I came from the automatic world with Beretta for all those years. I shot all the Olympic trap with Beretta and SO series guns, and I went to the automatic series from the 302 all the way up to the 391.
Shooting a green 303 when I first met you. About half the parts were broke inside of it while you were shooting.
It still worked.
It's crazy.
It still worked. So, and then I usually shoot Fiocchi shells. I've been shooting them for years. I have been sponsored with them before. I'm not sponsored by any shell company. So if anybody's out there listening, I'm really desperate right now. And I could use a little help. But I don't shoot as much as I used to. I don't compete on the tour like everybody else. I shoot 2 or 3 tournaments a year, the Nationals, the Open, the Worlds if they're in our country, especially if they're anything near San Antonio. I live near Austin, so it's pretty easy for me to get there. I work a lot. I don't stop working through the year. It's how I make a living, and the more I work, the more money I make, like everybody else.
So I never forget the first Fiocchi shotgun shell I ever shot. It was my first lesson with you, and I was shooting 1-ounce reloads 8s, and I'm not the best shotgun shell reloader. And I was having this trouble with this 45-yard target or something, and you leaned over my shoulder and took a purple shotgun shell, first one I'd ever seen, and said, "Here, you'll hit it with this." It was a Fiocchi White Rhino, baby. Slid that thing in, and I dirt ball the next target. And I was like, holy moly, how do you pronounce that? Where do I get some of those? Yeah, those things will get it done, won't they?
Yeah, it gets it done.
So you're kind of I'm an ounce guy because I focus on PTAS so much. I want to kind of shoot the same thing all the time. But you really like ounce and eighth, but more in number 8s instead of 7.5s, right?
Well, a few years ago, we met the actual rocket scientists.
Yeah, we had the rocket scientists.
PhD in rocket
in the clinic. I said, you can't figure out how much lead to give a target. He said, yes, I can.
Yep. He says the best density of a shot pattern between 35 yards and 55 yards is I mod choke with 1 ounce and 1/8 of 8s. And Will and I just laughed because he said, "What's so funny?" He's real serious. And we said, "Look, we've been shooting that same combination for forever. Ever since we started 30 years ago." And the story I always had was when I went to the Seminole Cup, one of the first ones, back in the day, they always had 3 preliminaries, but they had a real easy one, a medium one, and a hard one when they first started. And I pulled the easy one. I walk out, got 25-yard crossing, Sean Dale's, and I put in skeet choke, puffball the first pair, miss one, miss another one. And I just smoked it and then breaking 3 pieces. Like it felt the same to me or close to it. And so after the first 2 stands, there was already 100 straight, and as a whole page of 96 and above, I was down 4 my first 2 stations. So my father taught me how to go talk to the tree instead of act like a 12-year-old like some people do, throwing their crap and slamming their gun and acting like a stupid idiot. When people do that, it drives me nuts. So he taught me how to go talk to the tree. So he said, you can hit the tree, you can kick the tree, it hits back, it kicks back. So punish the guy, not your product. One time I slammed my gun on the concrete. My dad said, "Hey, come here, get in the truck." We got in the truck, we drove out of the driveway and went home, still had 500 birds to shoot. That's how my father was. He said, "Don't ever do that again. Next time, slam it on your foot to punish who pulled the trigger, surely not the gun." That's what my father's how he taught me. So, when you pull that kind of crap. It's crazy. So I went and talked to the tree. I screwed that skeet out. I put in IMOD, and I puffed out the next 10 stands for a 96 that day, and I never changed it since. It's always been that way. My gun I got from Mike and Pam, it's 23,000, which is just a few. He said between 25 and 30. It says 2327. That's the choke I have in it, and it's just smothers everything. It smothers everything. And I like it. It's like lightning. It reminds me, it's like a Ferrari. It just goes so fast to be able to stop and go the other direction. And it's just so in control. And the trigger's about 2 3/4 pounds. It's right down my alley. My whole life I've shot really light triggers. They're incredible. I'm really impressed. I've always liked Krieghoff, but they're always too heavy for me. And they were just too bulky. Always loved the trigger. Between Blauser and Krieghoff, they're probably the two best triggers in the industry. And, Blauser thumps a little bit. But my gun, which you brought it out today, and I didn't shoot it at all. Thanks for getting it all dirty and nasty and dusty for me. I appreciate that.
I bet Will probably talked you into getting that gun, didn't he?
All I had to do is put one in his hands one time.
Will, if it wasn't for Will, I wouldn't have got the dadgum thing to start with. He always helps me get what I need. So, but I told him I needed a real good gun and something I'd really be interested in trying one, and he got it to happen for me, actually. So, and then when Pam called, I was pretty excited about it. So, and
other big equipment change for you has been Dr. Cola.
Yeah,
glasses.
That's helped. I got some eye problems. I've got glaucoma pretty bad. My right eye's I got about 50% left in it. I can't see anything kind of in my upper part of my eye, and my kind of on the left side. I can just see out the middle of my right eye, and then my left eye is like 98%. So I'm on some medication for that. It slowed it down, but it's not ever going to stop. I will be blind in my right eye eventually, but I'm still right eye dominant. So Dr. Colo, which he really saved me on the glasses. It really helped me with the prescription and everything that I got. And I'm really pleased with that. It's helped my shooting. I see the bird a lot better, a lot clearer when I see it.
Use the Ranger Edge frames.
And when we have an eye problem with clients, I can pick up the phone and call him. He'll always answer. And I'll say, I got a client standing right here. We can't do this, and that. And let me talk to him. And he'll talk to him for a minute, and he'll give him the answer that he needs to hear because he knows the problem and he knows the answer, which is absolutely amazing. I had a trap shooter that got a 98.5 average at Camp Break 16, and he calls me and something's wrong. I don't know what it is. I go see him. He's like 67 years old, good shooter, and he's shooting a foot under everything. The pattern board is right beside the trap field. I said, give me the gun. I shot a couple of trap birds. I just dead centered them. I said, well, it feels like it's shooting right. So I took it over the pattern board and handed it to him. He held the whole bottom of the center of the circle, bottom of the circle, shot a foot low. I said, my God, I grabbed the gun. I held the bottom of the circle, covered the whole circle up. I said, we got to call Dr. Colo. So we call the doc.
Dial a friend.
And he put him on the phone. He says, yep. The guy's going, yes. Yeah, I'm on medication for that. Yeah, okay. Okay, I'll see you later. Thanks. So I said, hey, what's up, doc? He said, I'll talk to you later about it. I said, I got to go. I go back to work. Bye. I said, what's wrong? He said, do I have a thyroid problem? Because if your thyroid's off a little bit, it was going to do something with your hand and eye about where you put your hands, where you think they really are and they're not. And he goes, yeah, I've been on medication for the last month or two, and that was the problem. So that's Dr. Cole. He's not only, he's got 3 degrees and,
he's got the answers.
And he's the
total package. He's a sports vision specialist. He's an eye doc, and he's a sporting clay shooter.
Yeah, he's helped me a lot. So, and then, I shoot Ranger glasses, which Sarah's awesome. She's always given me anything I needed there. And we just got Cameron just got all hooked up with Ranger, and they got a great product. They're awesome. The prices they have are incredible. Everybody can afford that. There's some stuff out there that's so expensive. It absolutely blows my mind that people actually pay that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So,
So did you just say Cameron was sponsored by Ranger now?
He sure
Cameron's
is.
sponsored by Ranger.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh.
I think he's got to wash Sarah's car on a weekly basis or something. Yeah.
No, she's been really, really awesome to work with. She's taking really good care of me because my eyes are bad. I mean, it's real bad.
Yeah.
So.
And he just got some glasses from Dr. Colo as well. So, yeah, you're looking at the 3 blind stooges right now in here. So,
I'm not as blind as you guys are. but
no, you're pretty freaking blind.
I'm pretty blind, but I don't think it's as bad as you guys are.
Oh no, I could.
All right. So how do you, if someone's interested in coming to one of these clinics with you and Dan, Will, how do they, where do they go to find out the information about this?
Best thing to do is probably is to contact me directly. Phone number is 803-517-4216 or will@fennellshootingschool.com. I don't put this out on my regular schedule because I try to do my best to make sure I put shooters together of kind of likability so we don't have, 4 masterclass guys and 2 E-class guys or vice versa. We do this twice a year. We do spring and fall, COVID accepted. We are also now starting. We just did our first Texas one the other day at Westside Shooting Ground.
Steve Liberta.
Steve Liberta is another Dan's protege. So we do a 3-way clinic with Steve out there. Filled it up. Had a great time. We'll be probably launching and doing 2 of those a year. So for that, you can contact me or Steve Liberta.
If your club's interested in doing some of these sort of things.
If your club's interested, we could do some others. But what our format usually is, like with Dan and I do one together, we take 6 people for the day, divide them into 2 groups of 3, and you alternate about every hour and a half, 2 hours, working with either Dan or myself. You go back and forth. We have about an hour or so of classroom time in the morning, about 30 minutes to an hour at lunch. So it's an all-day kind of immersion style clinic, and we work you hard, soup to nuts, on the entire method all the way through the day. It's really a lot of fun, and probably 85% of the people that do the clinic are repeats from the last clinic we did. So it fills up real fast. I generally contact everybody that did the clinic previous. Almost always they all get in, and then we fill in whatever new guys we have slots for. So
yeah,
sounds
like you need to put some more days out there.
Dan's old, and I can only work him so hard. And I'm getting
another
old.
Cool thing you do, Will, there is you have Jim Greenwood down once a year.
Yep.
For patterns, which is
we've been trying to do 2 a year, and again, COVID's kind of messed us up. But I have Greenwood come in here at Fennell Shooting School, do pattern stocks. Henry Hopking used to come twice a year. He's kind of had some things with COVID going on that's kind of kept him from going over. We have Henry come in. Dr. Colo comes down occasionally. So we try to have a lot of stuff going on here at Fennell Shooting School. But Dan and I and Liberta and others will be doing some more clinics around the country.